You supported him in 2010. You stood shoulder to shoulder with him in 2011. And he needs you one more time. We all need you one more time. Because Governor Scott Walker has stood with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of the great state of Wisconsin, along with his dear friend Bobby Jindal from Louisiana, and the First Lady, Governor Scott Walker.
Good afternoon. What a great day. Only 12 more days to go to Election Day. Are you ready to move Wisconsin forward? I said it's been a great day out with Bobby Jindal. I couldn't be more proud to have my friend from Louisiana. He's turned that state around. He took a state that was in the dumps when it came to ethics. He took a state when it was in the dumps when it came to the economy. He's turned that state around. He's a leader not only in Louisiana, he's a leader across the nation. I'm so thrilled you're going to hear in a second from my friend Bobby Jindal. Let's give him a warm Wisconsin welcome. You guys got the right signs up. You got to remember on Election Day, I'm asking for your vote on June 5th, and I'm also asking you to make sure you send back one of the best lieutenant governors in the country, Rebecca Clayfish. Cast a vote for her as well. Tonette and I are glad to be here again. Let's give a big round of applause for the best First Lady out there. Tonette and I get asked all the time, how do you put up with all this? We've had thousands of people busted in front of our home, not the governor's residence, but our home. We've had our kids targeted on Facebook. We've had all sorts of nonsense in the last year and a half. And I got to tell you, it's real simple how we put up with it. Not just at Republican events, not just at campaign events like this, but literally at factories and farms and small businesses all across the state. Literally every day as I travel the state, I find people. I was just up last night in Chippewa Falls. I was earlier in the morning at a plant, Marvel Manufacturing in Oshkosh, and literally that place, just like about every other day, a guy came off the line from a piece of equipment. He said, "Governor, I want to let you know, me and my family pray for you and your family. Thank you for doing that for us. It means the world to us." Now, I know what this election's all about. It's about two things. Two things for me and Tonette. One's named Matthew, the other's named Alex. You see, those are our two sons. And for every kid and grandkid that you have across the state, for every young person, what we're doing is about thinking more about the next generation than just about the next election. And isn't that what you elect us to do? Now, having said that, it's hard to figure out what this election is about if you listen to our opponents, right? Because it keeps changing. I mean, originally it was about the reforms, right? But they don't talk about it anymore. Why? Because it's working. We've documented more than $1 billion. That's with the B. $1 billion worth of savings for the hardworking taxpayers of the state. And because of that, that helped our local governments lower property taxes for the first time in 12 years on a median valued home. Our reforms are working, and they're lowering property taxes. Well, then it was about the budget. Well, the budget's not really balanced, they said. Well, we've documented that our state has a $154 million surplus. It's the first time ever. We've had 2 consecutive years where we put money into the rainy day fund. Well, then, hey, we love you too. Then it was about jobs, right? You see all these ads from all these outside attack groups talking about jobs. Well, I think it is about jobs. I think it is, because if you look at the facts, not a sample of 3.5% of the employers like our opponents use, you look at the facts as required by law, every employer in the state has to report back what their employment is. Those facts, which every economist out there agrees are the best numbers to judge jobs in this state, those numbers show that we gained jobs in 2011, and we've had more than 30,000 new jobs since I've taken over as your governor. You see, employers get it. Small business owners understand. That's why we went from 2 years ago, when just 10% of our employers surveyed thought we were heading the right direction, to now 94% who say we're heading the right direction. And the overwhelming majority say they want to add jobs in 2012. But you know what the biggest concern for them is? It's the recalls. It's the recalls. And you understand why. Because you see, we built a positive foundation to move this state forward. But they're concerned that if something happens on June 5th, that we might go backwards. And I can understand why they think that. We don't want to go backwards, right? But think about why they might think that. If you look at our opponent, the mayor of Milwaukee, since he was first elected, has raised taxes and fees in the city of Milwaukee by 43%. If you look at, since he's been elected, the city of Milwaukee is now one of the top 10 poorest cities in the entire country. Since he's been elected and been in office over the last 8 years, the unemployment rate in the city of Milwaukee has gone up 28%. It's now over 10%. And as we just learned this week, on the one thing he claimed was his crowning achievement, the thing he said that pointed to his leadership as the mayor of Milwaukee, and that was a drop in the violent crime rate. We found out now, after the Journal Sentinel looked at the statistics, the violent crime rate in Milwaukee didn't go down. It actually went up. I think it's time he focused on fixing Milwaukee, not trying to screw up the rest of the state. You see, we're ready to move forward. We don't want to go backwards. We don't want to go back to the days of double-digit tax increases, billion-dollar budget deficits, and record job loss. We want to take this positive foundation that we built together to move this state forward. And with your help, in 12 days, that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, let me just tell you one last thing before I turn it over to my friend Bobby, because you're going to love to hear about him, because he's done some great things in the state of Louisiana. He's a great leader, and we're so thrilled to have him. But I want to tell you one more quick thing. I'm so happy and so pleased that you're here, but I'm more happy that you've been out on the phones, you've been out on the doors, you've been out putting up signs, because you know what? A lot of people spend a fair amount of time looking at the polls, and they think things are heading in the right direction, but don't think for 1 minute we can let up. We got 12 days to go. Last Friday, the big government union bosses came in again and said they're pouring even more money into this state, not only from Wisconsin, but from across the country, because they don't like the fact that we've got a governor here who stood up and took on the powerful special interests and stood with the taxpayers. We cannot let up. If we're going to move this state forward, we've got to push hard all the way through June 5th over the next 12 days, and I know we can. And when we do, we got to keep fighting thereafter to move this state forward, to put our kids back to work, to put our communities back to work, to put our state back to work, and that's why we're fighting so hard. See, I get asked all the time, how do Tonette and you get the courage to take on these tough problems? And I say it's simple. It's simple. As I travel this state as your governor, and it's a real privilege. It really is. It is a privilege nearly every day over the last year and a half. I've traveled the state of Wisconsin. And I go to factories, and I go to farms, and I go to schools and clinics and small businesses, and everywhere across the state. I run into moms and dads just like Tonette and I. People go to work every day and put in a hard day's work, who work hard at their jobs, hard in their careers, not just to earn a paycheck, not just to put food on the table, not just to put clothes on the kids on the back of the kids, but ultimately I meet moms and dads who work just as hard as Tonette and I, because more than anything, we want our children to have a better future than we did. This election is fundamentally about making sure that every kid and grandkid in this state inherits a better community, a better home, and most importantly, a better Wisconsin than the one we inherited. That's what this is about. That's why it's worth fighting for. That's why, with your help on June 5th, we're going to prevail and move Wisconsin and America forward. Now, I want to bring up somebody who knows about moving the state forward. Because before Bobby Jindal, Louisiana was heading backwards. We saw it in Katrina. We saw the mess that failed leadership does to a state when they don't know what to do, and we saw the difference after Bobby Jindal came in and took over that state. We've seen it nearly every day in nearly every action. He's a state that he's not a leader who not only turned things around when it came to dealing with natural disasters, he's a state that turned things around and made ethics a priority again. He's a leader that moved his state forward when it came to jobs and taxes and moving the state forward instead of moving it backwards. And one of the things I love best about Bobby Jindal in Louisiana is over the last 2 years, I take great pride in the fact that after years of being in the bottom 10, Wisconsin was in the bottom 10 in terms of the best and the worst states to do business in. Over the past 2 years, we broke into the top 20. The only state in the country that's close to moving that quickly in terms of moving up and places to do business in, to create jobs in, to have opportunity in, is the state of Louisiana, who's right up there with us. Their governor, Bobby Jindal.
Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Wisconsin. Do you guys stand with Scott the way that I do? Let me hear it if you stand with Scott Walker. And thank you. And I know he's introduced her, but we need to give another round of applause to the great First Lady of Wisconsin, Tonette Walker, as well. I said this earlier to lunch today. Scott's got a tough job dealing with the legislature, recalls. She's raising 2 teenage boys. I think she's got the tougher job than he does. I also want to thank, we must not forget, not only is Scott on that ballot, we've got a lieutenant governor we need to reelect as well. Let's give a great round of applause to Rebecca as well. Now, let me tell you why it was so important for me to come all the way up here to Wisconsin. By the way, it's pretty far north. For a Louisiana boy, this is pretty far north. I know you think I talk funny, but to my ears, everybody here talks funny. I was privileged to come and campaign for Scott when he was first running for office. I told him I'd be glad to come back. I didn't think I was going to have to come back every single year he was in office. But let me tell you why it is so important. He has been a great leader for Wisconsin. He's been a great leader for America. If you want the example of a statesman and a true man of integrity, courage, conviction, and principle, it is right here, Governor Scott Walker. Scott has done more in his first year and a half than many people do in their entire careers in elected office. Let's review what he inherited. He inherited a multi-billion-dollar gap in the budget. He inherited a state that was losing jobs. He inherited a state that was at the bottom of the rankings in Forbes' Chief Executive Magazine when it comes to business friendliness, in terms of a state where people wanted to move their businesses, invest in businesses, create jobs, and raise a family. Now, you're going to hear a lot of rhetoric during a campaign. You're going to see a lot of TV ads. You're going to hear a lot of claims. Let's just look at the facts. Let's look at what he has done. He has not only balanced that budget, he has created surpluses, and his reforms have led to the reduction for the first time in years of property taxes. Let's give him a round of applause for getting that done. From a state that was losing jobs, he has already created over 30,000 jobs, lowest unemployment rate since 2008, despite the national recession. Did that without raising our taxes. Let's give him a round of applause for turning around the economy. You've got a governor that's leading, and I love the way that he describes his leadership principles. Listen to what he said. This is not about the next election. This is not about the next poll. This is about the next generation. I literally opened our legislative session quoting Governor Walker to our legislators in Louisiana. Imagine how different our country would be if everybody we elected to represent us in Wisconsin and Washington, D.C. had that attitude. Listen to Scott and Tonette talk. This isn't about them. This is about our children and grandchildren. It's about making sure they have more opportunities and a better Wisconsin, literally, than what we inherited from our parents. It's what every parent wants. It's about the American dream. And look at the contrast in this election. I don't know Mayor Barrett, but his problem's not with me. His problem is with the facts. Let's cut through the rhetoric and promises. Let's look at his record. You've heard a little bit about what Scott has done as governor. Forget all the lies and the accusations and the campaign tactics. Let's just look at the facts for a second. 7 out of 8 years when he was mayor, he raised taxes, raised spending while mayor of Milwaukee. Is that what you want in Madison? Is that what you want for the state? While he was mayor, unemployment's gone up 28%, while under Scott's leadership, unemployment has gone down. Is that the kind of leadership you want in Madison for Wisconsin? Under his leadership, not only have you seen unemployment gone up, you've seen taxes going up, you've seen spending going up. You couldn't ask for a better contrast with Scott Walker's record. This election is not about ads. It's not about campaign attacks. This is about the future of Wisconsin. And I don't know about you, but are you tired of all this nonstop campaigning? Are you tired of all the negative ads? I think it is time to send a message to the state of Wisconsin. It's time to send a message to this country. It is time to go back to governing. It's time to put the politics campaigning behind us. It's time to send a loud message to those business leaders in Wisconsin and across the country that Wisconsin is open for business. We want to create jobs right here. I will close with one final observation. I've been privileged to serve as the governor of the great state of Louisiana. We've been through 4 hurricanes. You think Katrina, Rita, Gustav, Ike, and an oil spill. I want to close with this. We as a state have seen the importance of having strong leaders during challenging times. Wisconsin, this country, are going through some of the toughest economic times we've seen in a generation. You've got a great leader in Scott Walker, one of the most effective governors not only in Wisconsin's history but across the entire country. I want to ask you to do this. Don't listen to the polls that say he's ahead. Don't listen to the editorial endorsements. Don't look at all the folks in D.C. that have already said he's already won this election. Because the only thing that wins elections are people going and voting. So I want to thank you for making phone calls. I want to thank you for going door to door. But we got to do one more thing. We got to work every second between now and June 5th, and then we got to go and vote. Make sure your friends, your neighbors, everybody you know votes. Let's send Scott Walker back so Wisconsin continue to become one of the greatest states in the entire country and the greatest country in the history of the world. God bless you all.